The Donald Trump conviction is starting to get very personal as people like Piers Morgan, who have obviously voiced their opinions very heavily over the past few days, is getting accused of being a fascist amid his opinions of the entire situation. And it's getting interesting. Now, as a British person, I'm obviously not going to comment on the politics of the US because I don't feel like it's my place to, and also I'm not invested, or, well, I am invested now, but I'm not educated on the subject enough to make an opinion. But this is getting interesting. Piers Morgan is getting hounded left, right and centre, and every day it just gets worse for him. But yeah, on his recent video, things got particularly heated, and that's what we're going to be checking out today. So let's get straight into it.
Well, former President Trump's bombshell guilty verdict has triggered a predictable outpouring of smugness and glee from celebrities and liberals. Barbara Streisand said that Americans must not allow this felon anywhere near the White House again. Star Trek's George Takei quipped that he should now be called 34 instead of 45. And Joy Behar from The View said she was so excited that she, quote, leaked a bit in Costco. Charming. But could these celebrations be short-sighted and short-lived? The Trump campaign has raised a staggering $200 million since the guilty verdicts rolled in.
Now, the last time I made a video about this was 2 days ago. And at that point, it had started the night before, and overnight it had gained 40 million. So the fact that it's over 200 million now is huge.
And he received a hero's ovation alongside Dana White at the UFC event in Newark on Saturday night. And now even some of Trump's political enemies are rallying to his cause. Senator Mitt Romney, very much a moderate of the Republicans, said that Alvin Bragg may have won the battle for now, but he may have lost the political war. Wow. Democrats think they could put out the Trump fire with oxygen. It's political malpractice. So is Trump the felon now even more likely to return to the White House? We're here to debate this. It's the Shark Tank investor, Kevin O'Leary, criminal defense attorney, Mark Geragos, host of the Daily Wire's Michael Knowles Show, conservative commentator Michael Knowles, and the very unconservative commentator Francesca Fiorentino. Well, welcome to all of you.
Now, this is interesting, right? Because obviously this was, or could be deemed to be, a power play by the Democrats ahead of the election coming up, is it at the end of this year in November? So the idea that some people have is that this was obviously a power play to try and discredit Donald Trump ahead of the election so that there's no chance that you can get him so Joe Biden can serve another term. But could this have the adverse effect, and could this flip this 180 on its head and actually give Donald Trump more support ahead of the election? And kind of, is this the final nail in the Democrats' coffin when it comes to the election coming up? Interesting points that are being made.
Mark Geragos, let me start with you, just for the legal perspective here. I think two things can be true at the same time. One is that the jury did their job with the evidence placed in front of them, and that the verdict was a correct one from a legal perspective. And the second view, which can run concurrently with this should never have got to court in the first place, and dragging an American president through a criminal court process over something so relatively trivial, driven by apparent political partisanship on the part of the people driving it, was a catastrophic error of judgment and a disaster for the country. Discuss.
Well, look, I don't disagree with you. You can have these two thoughts in your head. If you're going to bring a criminal case against one of the most reviled people in Manhattan and pick a jury in Manhattan and expect them to do anything but convict him, then I know nothing about the criminal law that I've been trying cases about. That was a slam dunk for the prosecution from the get-go. At the same time, I can tell you that it was, to my mind, it was reprehensible that you take a case that is basically misdemeanors and with an expired statute of limitations, and you do the mental gymnastics to contort this into a target crime that's not defined until closing argument, and make those into felonies, basically reviving an expired statute of limitations. I could go on and on about the legal nonsense that this is, but I'm not criticizing the jury. I criticize, number one, the prosecutor for bringing this case. Part of what makes the system work is prosecutors have to make hard decisions when to bring a case. The jury did what they were given. That's on the judge. The judge, there's no such thing as directed verdicts.
Well, this is one of the things that Donald Trump said in his kind of statement post the conviction. No, not conviction. Sorry, he was convicted. So it's sentencing. I'm thinking of the sentencing comes in a couple of weeks. Convictions happen. Anyway, sorry. So, he said that obviously the judge rigged it. It was, he was anti-Trump. It was an unfair trial. Of course, the jury are going to deal with what's put in front of them. That's what they're there for. I mean, was it rigged? I don't personally know because I haven't kind of read up on it too much. But what I do know is that obviously there was some weird things that the judge and the jury kind of based their conviction on, especially Cohen's testimony, even though he's a convicted felon himself. I did find that a little bit odd, but at the same time, it's here and there, I suppose.
Criminal cases, this was basically a directed verdict based on the jury instructions. As to the political, I'll just end it with this. I said 30 years ago when I was defending Susan McDougal, who was Bill Clinton's business partner in the Whitewater case, when she was being prosecuted by then independent counsel Ken Starr, be careful what you wish for, Republicans, because the chickens are going to come home to roost. Sure enough, that's where we are right now.
And those chickens are going to keep coming home to roost. So, Francesca, my question for you is, I understand how joyous you must be feeling that Donald Trump has been convicted because he slept with a porn star 20 years ago and may have shuffled some business papers about it. But why is it good for America that one of your 46 presidents has been treated in such a humiliating manner over something so trivial? And why do you guys not see that this might help him rather than hinder him in the election?
Now, has he really been humiliated? Like, he's been prosecuted against a federal crime, which if anybody committed a federal crime, they would be prosecuted against it. And in the case of high-profile people, judges and courts tend to make examples of these people because obviously they're in the public eye. I'm thinking Adam Johnson in the past few years. He was an English footballer who turned out to be having sexual relations with underage kids. And he got prosecuted for it. And the press and the judges and the courts made an example out of him that no matter who you are still bound by the law. No amount of money can get you out of legal trouble. And I think, is that necessarily humiliating, or is this just someone has allegedly done something wrong and therefore they're doing the time for it? I don't know. Discuss your thoughts.
I happen to believe, Piers, that it's good for America when you hold the person who has the highest office in the land to the standards of the American law. And in this case, New York state law, where he committed these crimes. I happen to believe that it is a telltale sign of coming totalitarianism, fascism, skirting of the law when you allow a president to simply do whatever he wants and actually never hold him accountable. But look, the reality is this, is that these aren't crimes that were on the books in every single state. These are crimes that are on the books in New York State, as we talked about, all right? And so he knew exactly what he was doing. In fact, this is the most important part, is that David Pecker of the National Enquirer refused to keep on paying his hush money payments because the dude was tired of getting paid back in expired Trump steaks. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do it this time, especially not with a porn star. And so Michael Cohen had to do the payments on behalf of Donald Trump. Michael Cohen already spent 3 years mostly on house arrest, but he was already sentenced to 3 years over this. This is squarely Trump's making. This has nothing to do with his base. It has nothing to do with protecting American democracy like happened on January 6th, according to them. This has to do with Trump making his bronzer-stained bed with a porn star, trying to cover it up, and then getting caught doing it.
And out of interest, before I go to Michael, why is Bill Clinton able to have sex with an intern in the Oval Office when he's president and lie to the American people about it on national television? And why is he able to pay off Paula Jones $850,000, 4 times as much, 5 times as much as the Trump payment to Stormy Daniels, to get rid of a sexual harassment claim, again, while he's president. And
I guess that's a fair question, to be fair.
he has no criminal court recourse for that. Why is that deemed to be better than what happened with Trump and Stormy?
That's a fair question.
I don't think anyone is making that case, Piers. I'm
I'm asking you, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Or any predator. The difference is that he didn't cook the books financially using his own, using back channels in order to pay.
So paying
that
somebody off who
person
says you sexually harassed her, paying nearly $1 million while you're the president of the United States, and then having sex with an intern in the Oval Office and lying about it, that's fine because he's a Democrat.
Ooh.
Piers, only the
Francesca?
leftists in your mind are making that argument.
Sorry?
I said only the Democrats and the leftist mob in your mind are making that argument that you're opposing to it. I will say this about Stormy Daniels. I think it's incredible that she accepted $130,000 from Michael Cohen, because honestly, if I had the misfortune of sleeping with Donald Trump, no matter what the circumstances, let's say I had mad cow and then I did DMT on an empty stomach. If I had the misfortune of sleeping with Donald Trump, there is no amount of money you could pay me to keep quiet about it, because I would never tell a single soul. I would fake my own death and move to the Galapagos and pretend to be a bird.
I mean,
Oh my God, that is brutal. I mean, we can quite clearly see the bias that goes against Donald Trump just from that sentiment alone. But wow, those are some hoops that you're going to jump through before you admit to having sex with Donald Trump.
I would say it's very unlikely you would ever get the offer, but you do look quite like Karen McDougal, funny enough.
Oh, so I'm not cute enough to.
No, I just said you are.
accost. Is
I
that
said
what
you're very
saying,
much
Piers?
in his.
I love that line.
Actually, it's a compliment. Yes.
Yeah, it was a compliment. Go to Michael. Michael, look, I do think there's a ridiculous double standard here that will come back and bite the Democrats for the reasons that Mark Garagos said about historically. You know, you've seen this coming a mile off, where both parties starting to ratchet up this concept of kind of going after each other's leaders in criminal courts. I mean, you see this normally in banana republics, not in the United States of America. And it really does worry me, as someone who loves America and loves Americans, what this is leading to. Because if all that happens in each term of office is one party trying to incarcerate the other's leader, I don't know where that leaves America in a few years' time.
Well, this will only come back to bite Democrats if they lose their grip on power, and obviously they don't think that they will. This is why President Biden the other day, when he was walking out of a press briefing, was asked, Mr. President, Donald Trump says that you are imprisoning him because he's your political rival. What do you say to that charge?
Oh, that scene, and then he's just like... Oh, it's fantastic. The amount of memes I've seen of that is amazing. Just, Joe Biden doing that is... Wow.
We actually, I'll stop you there. We have the clip. Let's play the clip.
This is it.
Can you tell us, sir, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir?
That's the smile.
Do you think the conviction will have an impact on the campaign?
I mean, you look like Jack Nicholson in The Shining at the end of that. But, yeah, I mean, Michael, to pick up your point there, that's the clip you're referring to.
Yes, and it's pretty clear this is not a man who thinks that he has to be accountable to the American people. When you look at the federal charge against Trump, there was a poll that came out when that charge was brought that showed 62% of Americans think that it's primarily politically motivated. They just don't seem to care. And so this has been a ratcheting up, as we've all noted on the panel, of trends that have been built up for some years now. Some would say going back to Richard Nixon. But certainly in the early Trump campaign, the Democrats tried to stop him from being president by spying on him and cooking up fake intelligence, ironically enough, with Russia. And that didn't work. Then they tried to throw him out by impeaching him twice. That didn't work. Then they tried to kick him out by rigging the election and changing all the voter rules, in some cases in contravention of state constitutions leading up to that election. That did get him out of office, and he did leave office, but then he didn't go away. He kept running again. So then they indicted him 4 times. Now they've convicted him. They're going to threaten to throw him in prison. Pretty soon they're going to threaten to send him to St. Helena.
I'm pretty sure Donald Trump has said that even if he is sentenced to prison, he will still run for president. So I don't know whether this is, like, at this point, kind of tit for tat, where it's like, yeah, you can throw me in prison, but it's not going to stop me kind of thing. Or if it's like he's genuinely serious. Like, I don't think he'll go to prison. From people that I've spoken to about this, like Americans especially, they think it'll just be like really hefty fines, which will probably be as far as it will go, but prison time would be a very extreme case, especially for someone like Donald Trump. But, like I said, they're clearly trying to make an example of him through the legal system. Whether that be politically motivated or not, I can't say for certain, but it's intriguing.
But this has absolutely nothing to do with the law. As was noted earlier, at most you're talking about a misdemeanor that would have already expired under the statute of limitations. I'm not even convinced that there was really a misdemeanor that Trump committed. So my fellow panelist here is celebrating that the rule of law has been vindicated and overturned 234 years of American legal tradition. I would challenge her to see if she could possibly articulate how and what crime Trump committed, because so far Alvin Bragg, the DA, has failed to do so. The judge in the case, Judge Merchan, has failed to do so, and they can't do it because Trump didn't commit any of the crimes for which he's been convicted.
Well, let's just ask quickly before I go to Kevin. Francesca, just on that point, what crime did Trump commit?
It was financial crimes. It was white collar crimes. That is exactly what they charged him. He was convicted on.
What was the crime?
It's New York State law.
No, I understand. What was the crime?
It is New.
Francesca,
I don't even like it. It is. Well,
that's it. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Hang on, Mark.
He just got convicted on 34 counts.
Francesca, what was the crime?
Of like cooking the actual books.
What was the crime?
You are not allowed. So you are not allowed to use your own financial, like your own money, to pay off somebody, and then he logged it as something different. He logged it as just a regular payment, but he was actually paying off this porn star to keep quiet, which, if he hadn't been running for president, would not have mattered, but he was, and so it impacted campaign finance laws in New York State. Okay, that is what Juan Merchan just oversaw this.
Okay.
Alvin Bragg brought these charges because Michael Cohen, his sister, was already sentenced to 3 years to do it.
Okay, let's just go before. Kevin, I'll be very, very, very patient. I will come to you.
Look, I'm no expert. Let me just say, hang on,
No,
Michael.
Francesca.
You are no expert. That's right. Because the campaign finance law is a federal law.
Hang on.
Anyway.
This is heating up and I'm loving it.
Francesca, I want to go to Mark. You're the lawyer. Is anything Francesca just said, is that actually the crime?
Look, let me just say, I like Francesca a lot, and we probably agree on 80% of our worldviews. However, Francesca, the way you just described it, call me afterwards and I'll educate you, because that's not what happened. There was no theory that was given to the jurors. The jurors were told it could have been campaign finance, it could have been tax, it could have been false books. They were told they didn't have to specify, and specifically told they did not have to agree unanimously. That's what irks me. Lifelong Democrat, no fan of Trump, never voted for Trump, never will. But I will tell you, as somebody who has spent his entire career with kind of taking on unpopular causes and holding the government accountable, I have to tell you, I do that for a reason. And the reason is this kind of shenanigans, and that's the best light I can spin it, in the criminal courts has no place in a federal election.
No, I agree.
The campaign finance laws were federal, not state, and the state laws had nothing to do with it.
Okay, I want to go. Hang on. I want to go to Kevin. Been waiting very patiently. Kevin, you are a very successful businessman.
That's so. I'm just completely lost.
As Trump has obviously been in his career too. Do you think, in all honesty, if you were caught up in something like this, and I'm not for a moment suggesting you would want to have a one-night stand with Stormy Daniels, but if you went down this road and ran for office, or not run for office, if you just ran for, say, to be CEO of a company, do you think it would ever have led to a criminal case? Because the argument is that a regular business guy who's not actually running for the presidency would be treated very differently, and therefore the law has not been seen to be fairly applied here.
But is it not that he's the law? So it wouldn't. Right, it would be a different case, obviously, because they're claiming here that it's the the campaign money that's being used to pay off, and then there's like budgets and stuff that you have to fit within, and it's so technical. It's so technical, but I'll be intrigued to hear what the answer is here.
I think half the country in the U.S. believes this is politically motivated, which is not a good thing. It's having more impact on the state of New York, which is seen as unstable. Whether the case has flaws in it or not will be solved for in the appellate system. So most people assume, because of the importance of the situation, that it will go through the appellate system as quickly as possible, if necessary, to the Supreme Court. In the end of the day, these things balance themselves. The damage done to New York started back in the other litigation around real estate. Quietly, large projects, those are over $1 billion, are not being started in New York currently. People are waiting until things stabilize. And I've moved projects out of New York to places like Oklahoma, North Dakota, West Virginia, Montana, Pennsylvania, much more stable environments. It's too difficult to work in that unstable environment. And the real problem is you can't raise institutional capital right now. The capital from around the world thinks New York's a little off kilter. Now, something else to consider about Alvin Bragg, which I think history will prove to be correct. You've got to remember, Donald Trump only 24 months ago, in the middle of the first term of Biden, did not have control of his party. About a third of them were rebelling, if you want to use that word, because they were concerned about the controversy around Trump and they were looking for new leadership. And he was challenged. But something happened that changed everything. And this is the law of unintended consequences. Alvin Bragg started charging Trump. And immediately the entire Republican Party coalesced behind him almost in 48 hours. Of course, the country bifurcated into this being a political witch hunt using lawfare, as a tool, and we're still debating that. But here's what's really interesting. If Trump becomes president,
here we go.
I think he has a big debt to Alvin Bragg.
Right.
Alvin Bragg is the kingmaker.
Yeah.
He made Trump president by polarizing the country so much and motivating the base so much that in the last 42 hours, Trump has passed $60 million in fundraising. That's an all-time record for him.
This is, like, it's so bipolar. It's like, the idea that it was to sway against Donald Trump, but it seems to have merged the country closer towards him. I don't know if it's genius or like luck on Donald Trump's part, or if this is just almost, I don't know, I can't comment because I'm not, like I say, but I don't know, but here we go. So this is where the fascism comments come in. So I'm going to fast forward through the video a little bit. If you want to check the full thing out, I'll go over to Piers Morgan Uncensored. But this is where the fascism comments come in.
It's not a Merrick Garland thing. It's New York State law. So the idea that this is somehow politically motivated is all made up in your head, because what you
Biden's
do
DOJ is
on
also
your show
prosecuting
every
Donald
day
Trump twice.
is you groom your audience for fascism and you set them up for a complete takeover of the DOJ. This is all about allowing Trump to get away with any crime he wants, as you sort of slighted and sort of, laid out very nonchalantly just a little bit ago. He was impeached twice. Doesn't really matter that he tried to blackmail the leader of Ukraine into digging up non-existent dirt on Joe Biden, but that doesn't matter to you
Joe
or
Biden
your
threatened
followers.
to withhold arms.
You want to make sure. You want to make sure that when
you're
Trump is
accusing me
reelected,
of
he
fascism.
can get away.
That's a big...
He can get away
you're
with
accusing
getting
me of
rid of the
fascism. That's a
Department
big
of Education.
charge. All I would point out is that it's not my party that's imprisoning its political opponents right now. So if we're going to throw that accusation about,
I was about to say one of the key tenets of fascism is you imprison your political opponents.
This is getting heated. Like, this whole thing, like, politics is a heated, like, topic anyway. But this, like, where do we sit with this? Is it politically motivated? Is it the law system? Like, when I saw this, I was like, well, this is clearly the law system kind of, coming to pass. But it's like, what is... Obviously, I'm, as a British person, viewing this through second-hand, third-hand sources. I'm not like necessarily watching it from Donald Trump or Joe Biden's point of view. So, American friends, help me out with this. But this is wild.
Let me come back to Mark Garagos. I want to play a clip from Donald Trump at the weekend. This is talking to Fox and Friends, where he talks about the prospect of maybe going to jail.
The judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It could.
How do you face what that could look
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh, no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything. You just, the way it is. I don't know that the public would stand it, I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a,
you say if you tried house arrest or...
I think it would be tough for the public to take. At a certain point, there's a breaking point.
That's a very interesting point made, is if Donald Trump was sentenced, right, and he was told he had to go on house arrest or he had to be imprisoned, how would the public react? What would be the reaction from the public? I should imagine that there would be uproar, especially from the Republicans, but maybe even from like neutral parties, because they might see this as a swish of kind of misjustice carried out, or injustice, sorry. So what would the landscape of the public be? I'm so invested in almost wanting... I don't know, man. I don't know. This could cause like some civil war stuff right now. This is like this is teetering.
The question I was going to ask you is that a lot of people think the way Trump has been trashing the judge, the court, the process and everything night after night when he comes out to TV cameras, that under normal circumstances, you could trash talk your way into a prison sentence. Is that remotely possible here?
Well, let me give you the legal analysis and then I'll give you the political. There is no instance I can think of where you're convicted of 34 felonies in state court in America, in any jurisdiction, while you are found in contempt 9 times and a judge threatening to put you in jail, where when you're convicted, the judge doesn't remand you, meaning put you in jail right there pending sentencing. Obviously, that was not going to happen here. Obviously, at least to me politically, this judge is not going to put him in jail on July 11th. I don't even think he's going to give him house arrest. My friend Alan Dershowitz suggested something that I had not thought of. I have been speculating that the judge will give him 30, 60, or 90 days in jail, but stay it pending the appeal. Alan thinks that he will impose a state prison sentence of, say, 2 years and just hang it over his head. And that's somewhat diabolical, because if you've got that state prison sentence over his head and he does not win the election in November, there's all kinds of mischief that could happen after that. So I don't think, if I'm a betting man, I don't think he's going to go into jail or into custody on July 11th. If he was somebody other than Trump, he would be in custody right now.
I mean, Kevin,
yes, that's a really important point, and everyone needs to remember that.
Yeah, it is an important point. Kevin, just again, I'm across the pond at the moment, but I love America, and this is just this whole idea that we're even discussing the possibility of incarcerating an American president. I made the point the other day that if it was for running an illegal drone program that killed thousands of innocent people, or it was wholesale corruption on a very serious scale at the heart of government, something of that magnitude, then okay, I'd understand taking action against an American president. But the idea that Trump is going through all this and may end up with a suspended sentence or a hung sentence hanging over him, whatever it may be, as Mark just articulated, the idea that an American president, left or right, is facing this potentially happening in 6 weeks' time, in election year, I mean, it sends a shudder down my spine, if I'm honest, because...
Well, I don't understand why him being a president means that he should be above the law. I mean, if he's, done some dodgy stuff and dodgy dealings with the books, any businessman, regardless of how powerful you are, if it was Jeffrey Bezos, if it was Elon Musk, they would be prosecuted for it because, you know, you're kind of tampering with finances, and that could like go down a tax route. You could be tax evaded, whatever the case may be. I don't think that because Donald Trump is a president or ex-president or soon-to-be potential president, he should be treated any differently. That's just my view on it. Obviously, being from the outside looking in, everyone should have the same level of, you know, scrutiny if they go into court, regardless of what your current standing is in politics and where you could be in 6 to 10 months' time. You know, that's just my thought. I don't agree with Piers here that because he's president, he should kind of have a lighter let-off for fiddling with the books, allegedly. But what do you guys think?
Because I don't know what it makes America as a country.
Well, it has never happened before in a G7 country. It happened once, I believe, in a G20 country, but I think was acquitted. This isn't really about Trump anymore from the perspective you're talking about. It's about the American brand. It's about the executive. It's about the White House. It's about the American economy. It's about people's perception about investing in it. There's a pretty big discomfort, and I know this from both Democrats and Republicans. There's many outcomes of this sentencing, but I don't think anybody contemplates that he would be jailed. That would not go over well, I think, at all. From just a, I don't think that would be. This judge has a huge responsibility on his shoulders because it hasn't been tested by the appellate court. So it would be wise, perhaps, to be very, very lenient, and I would suggest probation maybe or something less, so that he can go on with the political process of running, you know, his Republican conference, decide if he's going to be and who his vice president is going to be, and setting up for the election just months away at that point. And as many have said on both sides of the party, let the people decide this situation on November 5th.
Right.
If they make Trump president again, then we're talking about the Oval Office. We want to be careful not to get in his way as he governs the land. I would have thought bringing the porn star case after the election would have been better. It was really unusual to listen, and I was in London, where you are, talking to sovereign wealth and institutional investors. As you know, I'm trying to buy TikTok, so I'm trying to line up a syndicate. And Stormy Daniels' testimony was embarrassing, talking about condoms and penis size and what does that have to do with state finance or federal finance law? It has nothing. It was really trashy and not at the level you would want to brand a G7 or G20 country.
Right, I'm going to stop the thing there. Obviously, if you want to go and check out the full interview, like I said, go over to Piers Morgan. But it's getting very heated, and it is very much, from the outside looking in, us versus them, where it's like people who are against this decision and people who are for this decision are kind of clashing, because, you know, the people against the decision obviously have their opinions, and the people for it have their opinions, where he should be tried and sentenced, and there's people who are like, well, this doesn't make any sense and it doesn't seem very fair, and they are just butting heads at the minute. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, be sure to jump scare the hell out of that like button, subscribe if you're new, tick on my little bell so you get notified whenever we upload to the channel, and until next time, I will spook to you later. Peace.